Alrighty, we're going to jump right into the Word. So let's go to today's Torah portion. And it starts in Exodus 25. You know, we say this every week, like every Torah portion, there's so much wrapped up in it. You know, you can't even touch the entire Torah portion every week because there's so much. We'd be here all Sabbath, you know. But and tomorrow too, yeah. So, you know, we're just going to pick a few things out of here and just go off on them. Well, not go off on them, but we're going to expound on them, and we're just going to hear from Yahweh. So starting in Exodus 25, verse 1. And it says, "And the Lord said to Moses, speak to the Israelites, that they take from me an offering. From every man who gives it willingly and ungrudgingly with his heart, you shall take my offering. This is the offering you shall receive from them: gold, silver, and bronze, blue, purple, and scarlet, and fine twined linen and goat's hair, ram's skin tanned red, goat skins, dolphin or porpoise skins, acacia wood, oil for the light, spices for anointing oil and for sweet incense, onyx stones and stones for setting in the ephod and in the breastplate. Let them make me a sanctuary, that I may dwell among them. And you shall make it according to all that I show you, the pattern of the tabernacle or dwelling, and the pattern of the furniture of it. They shall make an ark of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high. You shall overlay the ark with pure gold inside and out, and make a gold crown, a rim or border around its top. You shall cast 4 gold rings and attach them to the 4 lower corners of it, 2 rings on either side. You shall make poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold, and put the poles through the rings on the ark's sides by which to carry it. The poles shall remain in the rings of the ark. They shall not be removed from it, that the ark be not touched. And you shall put inside the ark the testimony, the 10 commandments which I will give you. And you shall make a mercy seat, a covering of pure gold, 2.5 cubits long and 1.5 cubits wide. And you shall make 2 cherubim, winged angelic figures of solid hammered gold on the 2 ends of the mercy seat. Make 1 cherub on each end. Make the cherubim of one piece with the mercy seat on the 2 ends of it. And the cherubim shall spread out their wings above, covering the mercy seat with their wings, facing each other and looking down toward the mercy seat. You shall put the mercy seat on the top of the ark, and in the ark you shall put the testimony, the 10 commandments that I will give you. There I will meet with you, and from above the mercy seat, from between the 2 cherubim that are upon the ark of the testimony, I will speak intimately with you of all which I will give you in commandment to the Israelites." And we're going to stop there for a moment. And as you read on, it goes on to tell you more about how, you also make a table of acacia wood, and it goes on about making the ark. But one of the things we're going to focus on, and a little different, usually we do tithes and offerings before the service and stuff. But interesting in this Torah portion, when I was first reading it, Holy Spirit had dropped in me a tithes and offerings message. So we decided to make it part of the sermon. We're going to do tithes and offerings afterwards. Because we had to grasp a hold of some things. It's one thing to be a tither. It's a giving. We're supposed to do it. Yahweh said, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse so that you would have food in my house. It's the tithing. But then he goes further to talk about offerings. In so many places from beginning to end of the word, you hear him say, make an offering, take an offering. So when we look at verse 1 here, and then he said to Moses, speak to the Israelites that they take from me an offering. From every man who gives it willingly and ungrudgingly with his heart, you shall take up my offering. You shall take up my offering. And it says, key words right there, willingly and ungrudgingly with his heart. Your heart has got to be in everything you do. Amen. In everything you do. It's got to be all heart. It was that line, it's all heart from here, okay? Your heart's got to be in everything. Not your mind. Your mind is what messes you up. But your heart, when your heart is in it, that's the truth. That's the reality. That's who you are and who you are with him. So your heart needs to be in it.
You know, in Isaiah 1, we read about that if you are willing and obedient, you'll eat the good of the land. It's not just being obedient, okay, I'm going to do what you tell me to do, but it's about our heart attitude behind it. You know, and you look at the whole willingly and ungrudgingly, first thing that comes to mind is the difference between Cain and Abel's offering. Okay, they both offered an offering, but Abel's offering was accepted and Cain's was rejected. Why? It had to do with their heart. He looks on the heart. It doesn't look on the outside. He looks on the heart.
So he says, so take from me an offering. And then when you read over, you go down and further down, and he says, so that they will build a sanctuary. So that is connected. The offering, and let them make me a sanctuary. Why? That I may dwell among them. So those are connected together. So your tithe, every week when we tithe, your tithe, but we're specifically talking here about offerings. You know, your tithe, your offering, has created an opening in the sanctuary. It's created an opening in this sanctuary. You know, there's a supernatural, we talked about this, I believe it was last week. There's a supernatural connection between heaven and earth with your tithe, with your offering. And it's a place where he has come and he is dwelling among us. You know, Yahweh is in this place. If you don't know that right now, he's in this place. He always is, but sometimes there's a difference. It's stronger. The presence is I don't know, thicker. I don't know how else to describe it. His presence is here. And I believe, I firmly believe, I know that when this congregation, when we do things like what we just did with this video, we all opened ourselves up with our hearts. I believe all of us in here did it. With our hearts, we opened ourselves up when we watched these videos, and a shift took place. A rearranging took place. You know, we were saying how you got to process this stuff, but it's a processing that took place that delved us even deeper into who we truly are and who he truly is and who the Jewish people truly are. You know, that last commercial they showed during the Super Bowl, that's a powerful commercial. That is a powerful commercial. When you watch that man, Tony, watching the mother and the little girl come out, and hear the interaction between the two of them, and then you see him like, what's going on? And walks over and sees that. But he didn't just stop there. He didn't just look and saw it, and then went about and went back to working under the hood of his car. Or just say, that's awful. He took action. He did something against the evil to stand for that mother and her daughter from his heart. It was a heart action. It was all heart from there. And he was bold and strong to do that. So when we give our tithes and our offerings, you know, his presence is in here. This is his dwelling. He's dwelling among us. And it's a place where there is everything that you will ever need. There is a place. We're in that place right now. The offering has, just like what he said to the Israelites, you give that offering and build me a sanctuary. Why? Because it's a place where everything you will ever need, me, Yahweh, himself, his presence, I will dwell there. And when I dwell there among you, everything you need is met. Every answer that you ever need is there. Every clarity, every direction, every manifestation of a blessing. We're in the middle of a fast. Now, and we're going to get into that more because of the next scripture we're going to look at. But we're in the middle of a fast where some of us in here, we've been sowing extra offerings. We've been giving in different ways from the heart. And that has created a more enhanced dwelling place. It's created where we're one-on-one meeting with him. You know, like we sing in that song, Holy, you know, face to face. That's what it is, Yahweh, face to face. The more that I enter in, you consume all I am. and I lose myself in the one who is holy. And when you come into that place where his presence is so strong and he's there, especially in these times of what we're doing in this fast, you lose yourself with the Holy One. And you're face to face with the creator of all of heaven and earth.
You know, Yeshua says that when he was talking about the man who loses his life will find it. And people look at that as, oh, well, that means that they die for my sake. No, you lose yourself. You lose your tie on what you want, what your flesh wants, the old self. You lose yourself, and then you find who you really are. You find your true identity in him, in that place with him where you've always belonged.
So you're in that place where everything that you'll ever need is met. Every need is met. Every need met, no matter what it is. You're in the dwelling place of Yahweh, and your offering is opening up the doorway into heaven, where your healing, your restoration, your prosperity, your joy, your deliverance, your shalom, think everything. Your protection, your victory, it's all here. It's all here. It's all now. You know, what does Gloria Copeland say? Take it. Take it. But you take it now because it's already been done. And when you give tithes and offerings, that's what creates the opening. That which brings you into the sanctuary, into his presence, into the holy place where there's the blessings flow. You know, the Holy Spirit had given me, I shared this with Mom yesterday, an illustration. And it's like, you know, you think of a cargo ship coming into port. You know, you think of one of these big cargo ships coming into port in the major cities, and what are they carrying? They're carrying goods. They're carrying cars and appliances and jewelry and food. Everything that people need is on these cargo ships. Everything they need in abundance. Now take the largest cargo ship there is, you know, these humongous cargo ships. And in the natural, for us, when you're a tither and an offering giver, there is no cargo ship in the world that can contain all the blessings, all the goods that Yahweh has for us. What does he say? Overflowing. You give and I will pour overflowing into your lap. So the supernatural cargo ship has everything we will ever need overflowing in abundance, more than enough. But it doesn't stop there. What does a cargo ship do? It comes into port, it empties out its blessings, and then it turns around and goes back to its source. And it's sent back. It's sent back to its source to do what? To fill right back up, right? To fill right back up with more than enough. You know, he is the God of more than enough, of overflow, of abundance, of every need met. You know, I like the way Rick Renner said it. I came across this, you know, Philippians 4:9, where it says, you know, my God will supply all of our needs according to his riches and glory. While the Renner interpretive version of Philippians 4:19 says, but my God will supply your needs so completely that he will eliminate. We use that word a lot in here lately about eliminating. We know what eliminate means. He will eliminate all your deficiencies. He will meet all your physical and tangible needs until you are so full that you have no more capacity to hold anything else. He will supply all your needs until you are totally filled, packed full, and overflowing to the point of bursting at the seams and spilling over. That is our Yahweh. And it's not just for us, though. It's for people outside these doors. Or seriously, what are we going to do with more than enough, okay? When we have abundance flowing in our lives, it's supposed to be for the people outside these doors. You know, when you think about it, when you give your tithe, we all know it's supposed to be 10%. You know, it's not 7.5 or 9.8. Okay, we all know that tithe means tenth. But when you give an offering, okay, offering is above and beyond the tithe. But as an offering is something that means something to you. It's a sacrifice. You know, it's got to be a sacrifice. You know, it's nothing really for Scott and I to give an offering of $10. That's nothing. It's not a sacrifice for us. But if you have somebody who's living paycheck to paycheck every week, and they're having a hard time meeting their bills and wondering about when the next meal is going to be on the table, and Holy Spirit tells them to give $100, $100 could be a sacrifice for them. But what do? They give that sacrifice because it's heart. And they know that's when it counts. And they give the $100. Think of a millionaire. For a millionaire to give $1,000, it's not a sacrifice. $10,000 probably isn't even a sacrifice. Depending on how many millions you have, $100,000 might be pushing it. A billionaire, $100,000 is not a sacrifice. It's like 10 cents for us, okay? It's petty cash. It's like, the change that I throw in Australia's little bottle. Here it is, But it's got to be a sacrifice. It's like the woman and her son when she had one cake left. And Elisha says, give it to me. And she could have been like, what do you mean, give it to me? Do you not realize this is our last meal and we're going to die? We're gone? Okay, but what did she do? She knew something was in the man of God, and it was in her heart. And she gave her last meal, not just for her, it was for her and her son, which is even more powerful, those of us that are parents. It's one thing when it comes to you, yeah, okay. But when your children are involved in it, wait a second. The life of my child, that was a sacrifice. That meant all to her. It was everything that she had left on this earth for her and her son. But it was the key that unlocked the door for the presence of Yahweh to start that supernatural flow. And we know the story about the woman and her son. And he eats the last cake, and what happens? Okay? That's the place that we're in, if we connect to that. Ephesians 3:20 says that he will do super abundantly. Amplified says, super abundantly, above and beyond all that you may dare ask, think about it, think. He didn't just say ask. He said anything that you dare to think, I'll do for you. Dare think or imagine. And some of us have got pretty colorful imaginations in here. We can imagine some pretty amazing things. But what did he say? I will do beyond that. I can do beyond what you dare ask, think, or imagine. That is who our Yahweh is.
Yeshua, when he was in the temple, he was watching them all put their offerings and stuff in the temple. And I think of that story where he sees this widow woman who's putting just a mite in, it's like worth a penny. And she's putting that in, and here's all the Pharisees and all these other people putting what would be like thousands of dollars in the offering and all that. And he said she gave the most out of anybody. He's not looking at the amount. He's looking at the heart. She gave everything she had. It was a sacrifice for her to put that in there. And that's what he looks for. And that's what taps into the blessing. Now, obviously, you're not giving to buy off God. That's not the idea of it. I'm going to give this because I expect you to bless me. No, it's attached to it. But your heart is what he wants. He wants your heart. He said to the Pharisees that, you guys are so strict about tithing. You'll tithe on mint and dill and cumin and your spices that you're growing in your garden. But you're forgetting the weightier matters of the law. Justice and mercy. He says that. But he said those things you should do without neglecting the former. It's all about heart. Where's your heart at in the midst of it? Are you doing it just because I got to do this or I'm going to get on God's bad side? Or am I doing it because I so love him? He's done everything for me, and I want to lay it all before him.
And that's where it comes in intimacy with Yahweh. So if you look in that same chapter of Exodus 25, and we look in verse 21, and he's talking about the mercy seat. You shall put the mercy seat on the top of the ark, and in the ark you shall put the testimony, the 10 commandments that I will give you. Therefore I will meet with you, and from above the mercy seat, from between the two cherubim that are upon the ark of the testimony, I will speak intimately with you, of all which I will give you in commandment to the Israelites. Now, when he said to Moses, I will speak, he just didn't say, I will speak to you and give you the commandments. He said, I will speak intimately to you. Okay, that's the key word, intimately. That's all what a relationship's about. That's all what covenant is about. It's about the intimacy. Now, when you look at the definition of intimate, when he said, I will speak intimately to you, intimately means closely acquainted, familiar, very close. It means private and personal. Moses, I'm going to speak privately and personally just to you. All right? Get that of him saying that to you. I'm going to speak privately and personally just to you. I'm going to speak to you. He spoke to Moses, I'm going to speak to you like a very close friend. That's another definition of being intimate, a very close friend, deeply associated with. I'm going to speak to you intimately and do what? Give you the 10 commandments, give you the testimony, give you the commandments to give on to the Israelites. Now, Moses could only be in that place by intimacy. He could only hear something like the 10 commandments from Yahweh by a place of being intimate, of already establishing that intimate relationship with him, And think about it, like I just said, to hear Yahweh say, what did Moses think at that moment when he heard Yahweh say, I'm going to speak to you intimately? Your close friend, Moses. You're my bestie, okay? You're my arm in arm, we're linked together. Think of your closest person to you, whatever. I'm going to tell you something intimately. Now, there's also another thing with that. Yahweh spoke to Moses certain things that he only spoke to Moses. So you have an intimate relationship with somebody, there's certain things that you will share with only them. That's private and personal. It's only for them. It's not going to be something that you go and share with, acquaintances and other friends or whatever. It's that one or two real super close, intimate people that you have, that you will speak to them intimately, that you'll talk to them privately and personally. And that's how Yahweh was with Moses. I'm going to speak to you intimately. And with the big thing, to give you the commandments, to give you the instructions, and what are they? The 10 commandments, and you can tie this right back into being a tither and offering giver. All of the commandments that Yahweh has said, bring me the tithe, take up an offering, walk in love. The 10 commandments themselves, do not steal, do not commit adultery. They are all rules for successful living. This book, this Bible, is Yahweh's love letter to us. It's his love letter from word 1 to word last. I don't know how many words there are in there, but word last. It's his love letter. It's his intimate way of speaking privately and personally to each and every one of us. Now, interesting.
I was just going to say that in the garden, why is it that the enemy came in to try to get them to fall into sin? Because sin destroyed the intimacy between man and God. He cut off the connection, he cut off the closeness. And from that point on, everything that Yahweh has throughout this word is trying to get man back to that place of intimacy, trying to get him back to garden status, to the place where he was walking with God in the cool of the day. I mean, picture that. Adam and Eve walking with the Creator in the garden, in the cool of the day. I mean, that's that picture of intimacy, like she's talking about, like a close friend. But there's people throughout the word where you hear Yahweh say, I consider them to be a close friend. Abraham was one of them. But in Moses, Moses gets to the point where he's spent so much time with Yahweh that he just cries out, show me your glory. I want to see your face. He's crying out. He wants more of him. He wants to see him in all his fullness. Because when you become close with someone, you want to know more of them. You're not like, I'm really close with you. I've seen enough. Seen enough. I know you enough. I don't want to know you anymore. You should, if you're in a close enough relationship, you should want to experience more of that. And he comes to this place, and I love the verse that Yahweh says to him, there's a place beside me. Like here in the cleft of the rock, there's a place here beside me that I want you to stand where I'll speak to you. And that's what he wants with all of us. That's what Yeshua's whole sacrifice was about, to bring us back into that closeness with him. That's what the Torah is all about. All the rules and that Christians look at it and say, oh, those are just commandments, they're rules. The Jews get into these legalistic things about them. No, they're keys to unlock another level of intimacy with him. And you know, I was listening to this whole thing that was talking about the oral Torah. And that's where a lot of, and there are some things, granted, where the oral Torah can get away from the scripture itself. But the purpose of the oral Torah is to build fences around the commandments. Why? So that I don't even get close to stepping across that line. And the whole discussion being, okay, yeah, so the Torah says do not commit adultery. Well, don't even get close to the line, so don't touch, don't come close. There's Proverbs, don't even go down the road, don't go near that. Don't even go near that. You know, best if you stay as far away as possible. Oh, you're just being legalistic. No, because my heart is, I don't want to even come close to something that could damage my relationship with him, that could put a block between Yahweh and I don't want to even come close to that. So when you have Jewish people who are truly passionate about serving God, and believers in Yeshua who are passionate about serving God, they're not looking for as close to the line as I can get before it's considered sin. No, it's how far away can I stand? How close to him can I get to where none of that matters? You know, when you get so close to him, nothing else matters. Like she said, he's your everything. He can fulfill your every need. Anything that you think in this world can fulfill you, he already has everything that you ever need. He'll fulfill it.
I'm done. That's good. You're done. I know. Okay, so it's about. Sorry. I thought you were going to keep going. So that's what it's about. It's about intimacy. You know, and with a relationship, with covenant, you know, it takes two for the intimacy. Okay? So let's look at 1 Chronicles chapter 28 for a second. And all throughout the word, there's scriptures about intimacy, about knowing him intimately, about him talking to you intimately. So I'm just going to go over a few of them. But in 1 Chronicles chapter 28, he's talking to Solomon. And he says, "And you, Solomon, my son, know the God of your father. Have personal knowledge of him." Verse 9, 28:9. Have personal knowledge of him, be acquainted with and understand him. Appreciate, heed, and cherish him. And serve him with a blameless heart and a willing mind. For the Lord searches all hearts and minds and understands all the wanderings of the thoughts. That's another sermon, actually. If you seek him, inquiring for and of him, and requiring him as your first and vital necessity, you will find him. But if you forsake him, he will cast you off forever. That end is a powerful, powerful end of that scripture. But what does he say to Solomon? Know the God of your father. Have personal knowledge of him. What was Jordan just saying? When you have personally when you want to know somebody, that's what intimacy is. You just don't stop there and it's like, okay, I know your favorite food is raspberries. Okay, I know you now. Okay, no. You know them. It's a continuing process. So he's saying to Solomon, you know, have personal knowledge of him. Be acquainted with him and understand him. You got to understand the person that you're intimate with, okay? That you're having such a close, private, personal conversation back and forth. Moses had to understand what Yahweh was saying to him. But what does it also say? And appreciate, this is the Amplified, appreciate, heed, and cherish him. That key word, cherish. To cherish him, to treasure him. Just like we know he says to us that he cherishes us, that he treasures us. We need to cherish and treasure him. But it also says, and serve him with a blameless heart and a willing mind. You have to have a blameless heart and a willing mind where the intimacy comes in. And for you and like we said, especially during this fast, for you to be so clearly hearing the intimate voice of Yahweh during this time. Many of us in here have already experienced stuff during this fast. I mean, it's just been amazing, okay? It's just been amazing, above and beyond amazing. And many of us have already shifted and changed and just things going on. But it comes from that intimacy. It comes from knowing Yahweh, a two-part thing. And we talk about that a lot in here, but because it's important. That's vital. It's the key to everything. Exodus 33:13 says, "Now therefore I pray you, if I have found favor in your sight, show me now your way, that I may know you progressively, become more deeply and intimately acquainted with you, perceiving and recognizing and understanding more strongly and clearly, that I may find favor in your sight. And Lord, do consider that this nation is your people." The voice says, "If I have gained your trust and blessing, reveal your way to me, so that I can truly know you, so that I may gain your favor. Remember that this nation is your covenant people." That's what it's all about. It's all about covenant. They always will be his covenant people. Acts 22:14. "And he said, the God of our forefathers has destined and appointed you to come progressively to know his will, to perceive, to recognize more strongly and clearly, and to become better and more intimately acquainted with his will, and to see the righteous one, Yeshua the Messiah, and to hear a voice from his own mouth and a message from his own lips." What is happening during this fast? We're hearing a voice from his own mouth and a message from his own lips. Ephesians 1:17 says, "For I always pray to the God of our Lord Yeshua the Messiah, the Father of glory, that he may grant you a spirit of wisdom and revelation, of insight into mysteries and secrets, and the deep and intimate knowledge of him." What comes with intimacy is deepness. Deepness and intimacy go hand in hand with each other. Philippians 3:18 says, "Yes, furthermore, I count everything as lost compared to the possession of the priceless privilege, the overwhelming preciousness, the surpassing worth, and supreme advantage of knowing Yeshua the Messiah, my Lord, and of progressively becoming more deeply and intimately acquainted with him, of perceiving and recognizing and understanding him more fully and clearly. For his sake, I have lost everything and consider it mere rubbish in order that I may gain Yeshua, the Anointed One." And then Hebrews 3:10 says, "And so," and this is interesting, and this is Yahweh saying this, "And so I was provoked, displeased and sorely grieved with that generation, and said, they always err and are led astray in their hearts, and they have not perceived or recognized my ways, and become progressively better and more experimentally and intimately acquainted with them." That's the offside of it. That's the offside. That's his words. That's the offside of not being willing and obedient. That's the offside of being rebellious. Okay, that's the offside of it. But now interesting, when you take that whole thing of where Yahweh is saying, "Moses, I'm going to speak to you intimately." We look into where he was going to speak to Moses intimately. What has he said? He says, "You shall put the mercy seat on the top of the ark. And in the ark you shall put the testimony of the 10 commandments that I will give you. There I will meet with you, and from above the mercy seat I will speak intimately with you." From the mercy seat, Moses, I'm going to meet with you and speak intimately with you. So I kind of went off on a little thing about the mercy seat because there's so much power in that. And we don't really sometimes focus on those details, the mercy seat and the cherubim and all that. But there's so much power in what the mercy seat was. The mercy seat, it was the lid, the covering of the ark. It was the place where it was representative of Yahweh's presence. That was one of the things of the mercy seat. It was representative of his presence. But it was also the place of transference of sin for forgiveness. So look at those two things. The mercy seat was the place of transference of sin from forgiveness and of reconciliation between Yahweh and his people. But it was also his dwelling place among his people in his presence. That's where he was going to meet with Moses. He was going to meet with Moses in the place that was not only his dwelling place, but it was the place where the transference of sin took place. The place of forgiveness, the place of atonement was on this mercy seat. This was the place where he was going to communicate with Moses, passing on all the laws of Israel. The same place where the atoning sacrifice was offered was on this mercy seat. And he was going to have an intimate conversation with Moses there.
I have to come up and I have to say something at this point because we translate it as mercy seat. The actual Hebrew word there is kippa'ot.
That's where I was going next.
Okay, which means covering.
That's where
It's on. Up. Use hers. Okay. One more time. Kippa'ot means covering. He's going to meet you under the covering. You know, and I understand mercy seat. I understand that the translators, what they were meaning by that. You know, he's the God of mercy, and you're going to meet him there and all that kind of stuff. But I'm one that I don't want to mess with what the Hebrew word actually says. It doesn't say mercy seat. It says kippa'ot. It says, put that there. I'm going to meet you in the place of the covering. You're covered by the shadow of his wings. You're covered by the blood now of Yeshua. And sometimes we can get off into things like that, and we don't stop and realize that we've gotten into a little bit of religiosity when we think of the mercy seat and all that. And hopefully I'm not doing anything. But it's the covering. It's a covering. You need the covering, okay? And this whole week's Torah portion is teruma, which is, they translate it as offering, and we're talking about the giving and all that. The whole sense of the Hebrew word there means to elevate. So that we're talking about, you know, you can just give something and it's not of your heart, and it stays in an earthly realm. Stop and think. When they were making that tabernacle, what were they making it with? They were all giving, and at one point we read it in this Torah portion where it says that Moses told them, don't give any more, don't give any more. I've already got more than enough. I don't know any other pastor since him that has ever said that to a congregation. Don't give any more. I've got enough. Just hold back. We're overloaded now. No, there's always another project, right? But the whole thing is, what were they making that out of? What were they making the very place that he was going to come and he was going to dwell in their midst? They were making it out of material things that came from where? From Egypt. Now, they were lugging all that stuff through all that desert all that time. Man, they must have been like packed up, okay? But he tells them exactly what they need to use to make that place that he's going to come, and it's not in their midst. It's really, I'm going to dwell in you. And you know, a lot of people think, keep me on this because I got to come back to this, but a lot of people think that the Jewish people, you know, they don't understand that whole thing about, you know, he's living in you and all that. Oh, how wrong you are. How wrong you are. They had the whole sense that they're making this tabernacle. They're making this sanctuary because he wants to dwell in them. They see that even with one man, if you save one man, you save an entire universe because of who's in you. Okay, because Yahweh, the great one, the mighty one, is in you. Okay, so here they are bringing all this stuff that they plundered the Egyptians with, and they're going to give it, and that's what they're offering. They're offering material stuff that is common. It's common stuff. But when they came in and they offered it with their heart, Yahweh, see, they made a connection between the supernatural and the natural, and in that place, it was elevated. It was no longer common anymore. It now had a supernatural essence to it. And that was sanctified when they made it so that he can now come and he can dwell in it. But it was all with that covering. Put the covering in place. We need to be covered by him. And now, again, we now say covered by the blood. But when you give with your heart, it's a natural thing we give. Sometimes it is our time. Sometimes it's our efforts. It's other things like that. I understand that your love, your smile, and all that. But we give financially. We give of things as well. When we're giving from our heart, see, the windows are open, okay? The tithe is the key that unlocks the window. The offering is the thing like priming the pump, okay? It starts the flow, okay? And when you give like that, you're tapped into heaven's economy, to the supernatural realm of economy, where it is exceedingly abundantly above and beyond all you can ever dare ask, think, pray for, or even imagine, okay? And it's going to be a flow. And it even says the wealth of the wicked is going to come into the hands of the righteous in the end. Got to be able to handle it. Got to be able to handle it. Clean hands and a pure heart, because we know it's money with a mission. And we offer it, and he sits on it, and he elevates it to a supernatural realm. And that's what we saw, we see it with the loaves and the fishes. It's something naturally gave. What did he do? He multiplied it to meet the need. What did they need at that moment? They needed food. So it multiplied under his hands. Okay? So we've got to make sure we're understanding, and you'll go on with whatever you've got. Okay. I didn't know, but you kept saying the mercy seat, and I just know because I just have this habit. What did it really say there? And what was the Hebrew intention behind what he said? He says things specifically, and it does not say mercy seat. It says the covering. We are under the covering of the Almighty. We're under his wings, under the shadow of his wings. And when we there give something from our heart, he can elevate it and supernaturally multiply it to meet the needs, not only our needs, it's going to flow through us to those out there that need it. We are going to be blessed to be a blessing. We are blessed to be a blessing. Amen.
So another interesting thing about that, the whole covering, when you look at how, I don't know, for a lack of a better word, how important it was, how much it meant, how valuable it was, his presence and the forgiveness and the transference of sin. Well, what does it also say when they were doing that? And he says, I will meet with you from above it, from between the two cherubim that are upon the ark of the testimony. Now, just a little side note on the whole cherubim thing. So like I said, I was researching this whole thing last night about the mercy seat and the Hebrew word for it and all that, and how it's the atonement covering and everything. But with the cherubim, he had those placed there. Now, Yahweh does not do anything just for coincidence. We know there's no things as coincidence. He doesn't do it just to do it. Now, most people, when they think of cherubim, they think of chubby little babies or whatever, cupids with fluffy things and stuff, okay, floating through the air, Valentine's Day, right? But that's not what they were. If you read in the first chapter of Ezekiel how they describe what cherubims were, they were interesting creatures. We'll just leave it at that, okay? They were meant to be like, you saw them and it was like, whoa, okay. Now
There's a reason why the angels said, do not fear.
Do not
I don't
fear,
think
exactly.
Cupid has to say, do not fear, when little Cupid comes up. Do not fear, no.
Now, when you read this in Exodus, the scriptures we were just reading, he doesn't really explain about the cherubim. But when you read in other parts of the Bible, you get a clearer a view of what they are. Like I said, in the first chapter of Ezekiel, they were They were ministering angels sent to protect Yahweh's presence. So look back in Genesis, chapter 3, when Yahweh banished Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden. What happened? He set up cherubim on the east side of the garden. Why? To be gatekeepers of Yahweh's presence, to be gatekeepers, to be guards. But he went a little bit further. He just didn't set up, I would think it was probably enough to have these big creature like massive men, but they had a flaming sword in their hands. Okay, he meant business. Well, that's what he set up here at this place where he was going to meet with Moses, that atonement covering, where he was going to meet with Moses intimately. And it was, yes, definitely. It's totally futuristic. So when you look at stuff like that and you add that into it, you see how powerful, and that's not even a good word to describe it, how powerful that whole thing is. How powerful Yahweh is. Like we've all been saying, the God who is above and beyond, the God who can do abundantly more than you could ever think or imagine. Your mind just can't comprehend. We've said that before in certain things. Your mind just can't comprehend. You try to get it to go there, and it just doesn't, because he's so big. He's so unlimited. He's just so everywhere. Fills everything everywhere with himself. That's who he is. So I came across this little thing afterwards that I kind of just took a couple little parts out of it because it tied right in. But it was titled, my printer kind of ate it up on me, so I got to piece it together here. But it's titled, Hearing Yahweh's Voice is Vital for Intimacy with Him. And it says, hearing Yahweh's voice is by far the most important part of your prayer and fellowship time with Him. You cannot have an intimate and wonderful fellowship with Yahweh without learning to hear His voice and intimately communicate with Him. There can be a big difference between hearing His voice and listening to Him. Seeking Yahweh and listening to His voice is part of having a humble and reverent heart toward Him. He speaks to His people, and the Bible is full of these examples. He continues to speak to His people to guide and lead them, and it is critical, and I added in, especially in this day and hour that we're in, to learn to discern and hear Yahweh's voice. Psalms 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." Isaiah 30:21 says, "Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" And that's what so many of us have been hearing during this fast. This is the way, walk in it. We've been hearing that intimate word from Him. The biblical word for listen means to reverently and attentively listen with the intent to follow or obey. Okay? So it's not just we're listening, it's with the intent to follow and obey. When you do not carefully seek Yahweh through His word and through prayer and listening to Him you are being irreverent. He has sent His wonderful word to you so that you can learn how to live to please Him, and so that you can know Him in a real and personal way. Also, so you can become all that He has created you to be, and for you to have the best possible life. His word is a love letter written personally to you. He primarily speaks to His people through His word. When we are not reverently and attentively spending time in His word, we are really ignoring Him and being irreverent towards Him. We are showing Him that there are other things in our life that are more important to us than He is. And we've been learning, not learning, but doing this fast. We've put aside things so that they aren't more important than Him. And I believe that after this fast, that's going to continue on, because we've been so changed, just so changed. When you choose to not listen to Yahweh, you are choosing to resist and rebel against Him. When you do this, you will forfeit seeing and experiencing His very best for you, and there will be no shalom and joy and power and victory in your life. When Yahweh is your treasure and first love, and you want intimacy with Him more than anything else, you will always seek him and listening to his voice. Knowing his voice comes from an intimate love relationship with Yahweh, experiencing him. Our attitude should always be, when it says in 1 Samuel 3:9, "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening." Seeking Yahweh and hearing and listening to his voice is a heart attitude that comes from a heart of love for Yahweh, reverence for him, and a desire and passion to know him and to please him. It comes from a heart that has crucified and denied self in order to have the fullest and most wonderful intimacy, fellowship, and partnership with him. He is your first love. Hearing his voice is by far the most important part that you'll ever have to do. It's all about Yahweh. And that's what we've been experiencing in this fast, this intimacy with him, with giving up everything else. You know what? I'm giving up this because you mean more than that. There's nothing, like Jordan was saying at the beginning, there's nothing in this world that takes priority what Yahweh means to us. Nothing is more important. Nothing holds more value. That's where you got to be careful with certain things. You hear somebody say, well, I don't worship idols. Well, are you sure about that? Let's define what an idol is. Your car, a food you like to eat, your child. I learned that one the hard way when my daughter was younger, okay? Because she was starting to take a place in my life where it was considered she was being an idol, and she was coming before Yahweh in certain places. That has since changed. But, idols aren't just some, little statue sitting on the table that's motionless and doesn't speak. People think of idols being that way. An idol is anything that is in your life that has taken a hold of you above and beyond Yahweh, that you can't give up in order to spend time with him. But many of us through this time of fasting have indeed given up things, some things that have been idols in our lives, that Holy Spirit has spoken to us. That's an idol in your life, you need to get rid of it. And it's not just you need to get rid of it during this fast. You need to get rid of it when this fast is done. Forever, whatever it may personally be between you and Yahweh. But there's so much wrapped up. We say this all the time. There's so much wrapped up in these Torah portions. And you just really got to dive into them deeply and glean everything out of them that there is.
And everyone's sacrifice is different. And even in the Torah portion, throughout the Torah, he tells you different things to offer as a sacrifice, but he allows different things for different offerings depending on your ability. So some people in Israel, he wouldn't require them to offer a bull or a lamb because they couldn't afford it. It was beyond their means. So he would say, well, then offer a turtle dove. So it's, okay, what can you do? What can you give? What can you sacrifice? And it's different for every person. We're going through this fast, and what one person's fasting may have no hold on somebody else's life. We were talking last week about the different things that we were fasting. For me to fast iced tea would be nothing. I don't drink iced tea anyway. Don't really normally like it. So if I was to come up to the fast and say, she's fasting iced tea, so I'm going to fast iced tea, it's not a sacrifice to me. I won't even think twice about it for the rest of the 3 weeks. If it's something that, I'm going to give it up, but you never think about it and it means nothing to you anyway, then it's not a sacrifice. And it's not a sacrifice of your heart. For me to give up watching videos on YouTube or something, that's more in my conscious thinking that, something will come to my mind and I want to go and check it on YouTube. I'm laying that down so that I can spend time with Yahweh. It's a conscious thing, and it's from my heart. It's not because, I can't look at it. I'm fasting it. Oh my gosh, I can't wait till this fast is over, and then I can look at it all I want. No, it's out of a heart of, I want to be with you. And that thing might be taking time that is better spent being with you. In these times, we've talked about this so often over the past years, it seems. But the times that we're living in are so critical and so crucial that you need to be in his presence. His presence needs to be our daily bread. It needs to be the air that we breathe. It needs to be what we live on. And Dad used to talk about how when somebody's going through a situation in their life, whether it be physical or whatever, say somebody's in the hospital, but they're watching soap operas on TV or this or that, that's not going to help you overcome the challenge. It might entertain your flesh. It might be something that, I like to read, and sometimes you just need to just veg and just chill out and forget about everything else and look at this. In the middle of a battle is not the time to do that. It's not going to help you get the victory. And sometimes that's the very moment when your flesh starts crying out for all these things. You ever notice, you can be going through something like this fast, and you're going along, and you're doing well, and you're getting revelation, and this is going well, and you're excited, and then something happens in your life. Could be the least little thing that sets something off in you, and suddenly you find that you're craving those things that you're fasting. Anybody ever have that happen? It's like suddenly something happens in your life, and now I really want to watch all those videos on YouTube, or I really want to eat that food item, or I really want to do this. What is that? It's your flesh turning to its old source of comfort. And what you're doing is forcing your flesh to say, no, that's not where I find my source of joy. That's not where I find my comfort. I find it in Him. He's all I have. He's all I need. He's all I want. And like that verse that she was reading that said, when you cherish Him, do you cherish Him? Do you want to serve Him with a willing heart? Or is it just a list of rules and I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this? It's all about a heart. Did you have something else? Okay. So let's turn over to Romans chapter 12. Romans chapter 12, and we will start at verse 1. I appeal to you, therefore, brethren, and beg of you, in view of all the mercies of God, to make a decisive dedication of your bodies, presenting all your members and faculties as a living sacrifice, holy, devoted, consecrated, and well-pleasing to God, which is your reasonable, rational, intelligent service and spiritual worship. Make your bodies a living sacrifice. Now that seems like an oxymoron because we think of sacrifices as you're something dead. You just lay it down. But dead sacrifices have no value. If it doesn't mean something, they cost nothing, they mean nothing. But a living sacrifice, living means it's continuing on. Living means it's not just, it's like we've said before, it's easy to die for Him. It's a quick, It's harder to live every day with Him as the center. And when your flesh wants to go one way and He's telling you to go the other way, you say, not my will, but yours be done. Yeshua encountered that in the garden Himself. It pulled against His flesh to go that way. But He was able to lay down His life as a living sacrifice. He ended up going all the way because He actually died as the sacrifice. But it was all about obedience to His will. Look at the story of Abraham with Isaac. He's offering up Isaac. What was it? What was Isaac? Why was it Isaac that he had to offer up? Because it was something precious to him. It was something that had the most value in his life. And he's saying, are you willing to lay down something that has the most value in your life for me? Are you willing to? Now, obviously, He didn't make him go through with it. But the fact that Abraham was willing to offer up Isaac, and Isaac was willing to obey his father. People think of Isaac as being this little boy. He wasn't a little boy. He was almost a full-grown man at that point. He had to be willing to lay down on that altar and let his father hold the knife over him. Okay? He had a part to play. But that willingness, that sacrifice that Abraham made as a covenant partner with Yahweh opened the door for Yahweh to be able to step into this realm and offer up His only Son. It's an exchange. Covenant is always both ways. It was about the intimacy that was between Abraham and Yahweh. That, you know what? He said, I've seen that you're not even withholding from me your only son. You know, think of it. If you have multiple of something, I'm not talking about children. That doesn't quite apply in children. You have multiple children, that one doesn't matter. But if you have multiple material objects, like it might not mean anything to you to give one of them up. You know, okay, if I have multiple cups or whatever, if somebody came up and needed a cup, okay, fine, I'll give you one. It didn't really cost me much. Fine, I gave one of them. It's not a big deal. If it was my only one, and it cost me a lot, and it meant a lot to me, for me to give that away, to give that up, to sacrifice that's a lot more. That has a lot more weight, has a lot more value in it. And so we only have one life. We only have one life to live. Contrary, you know, and it's not you only live once, so go out and party and do everything you want to do in this lifetime. No, you only have one life to live. Live it the best you can for him. If you surrender it all to him, you find out that it's the best life that you could ever have. You can't live out in the world in any way that the world thinks is fun more than the kingdom of God is. And so he says that to make a decisive dedication, you have to make that decision yourself. Nobody else can make it for you. Make a decisive dedication of your body. And he said that this is your reasonable service. So he's saying it's just reasonable for you to offer up your body as a living sacrifice and your spiritual worship. So, you know, people often in the church world like to spectacularize things. I'm going to come to church and raise my hands, say hallelujah, and sing all the songs and worship God. And I had this amazing experience, and I was pinned to the floor, and God's presence was strong. But how did it affect your life moving forward? How did it change you? Once you got up off the floor, once you left the building, were you a nicer person when you walked out the doors? Or were you still cutting people off in traffic? You know, what change happened in your life based on that spectacular experience? The spectacular is not always the thing. And I was listening to this rabbi who was talking about this, and he was saying how many cultures tend to look and focus so much on the miracles that happened when the children of Israel came out of Egypt and Mount Sinai and all this. They look at the spectacular miracles, but they forget all about the Torah, the Word of God. The miracles were his identification. Hey, it's me. I want you to know who's doing this, who's speaking to you. So he gave them the sign. It's me. It's me that's speaking to you. But that's supposed to cue you in to now I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to hear what you have to say to me. And I'm not just going to hear it and say, oh, that was a nice message and move on, but I'm going to put it into practice in my life. And how can I best live out what you've given to me? You're entrusting me this revelation. You're entrusting me these verses in your word that you've highlighted. And you know, every one of us know about that. You're reading through the word and you're reading a chapter that you might have memorized. You might know it front to back. You might have read it a zillion times, but suddenly a verse highlights to you. And suddenly it's like it sticks off the page. That's him giving his own intimate revelation to you. He's speaking personally to you from that scripture. I mean, don't discount those times, because that's an I see you moment. That's Yahweh saying, yeah, this verse is just for you right now. And there's a key in there that will help you move through your life. You know, I think it was Brother Hagin used to talk about how many people would be looking for a prophecy. You know, I want the prophet to prophesy over my life, and again, that's seeking after the spectacular. But he said, you know, usually prophecies were only given to somebody who was about to go through something critical in their life, and they absolutely needed that to hang on to. But they're missing that every word from Yahweh is prophecy. When he's speaking scripture over you, that is a prophecy in your life. And when you're speaking the word, you are in essence a prophet. You're a prophet over your own life. And so because people are so seeking after the spectacular and the prophecy, and I want a word from the Lord, they're missing that Yahweh is speaking to them constantly. You know, I want a word from the Lord. I want an audible voice and all that. No, he's speaking in that still small voice when you're studying it. When you seek him, you'll find him. But you have to seek him, what? With all your heart. With all your heart. It's not just, Mom used to say this to me all the time, maybe still does, that, going to look for something in the closet, and I don't see it. And she's like, well, you need to look better. Look around you, pay attention to your surroundings. Don't just give it a passing glance and expect it's going to jump out and say, here I am. It's there if you will search for it. Well, Yahweh says, if you will search for me, if you will look deeply into that word, you'll find me. You'll find that relationship. You'll find that word. You'll find the answer that you need if you seek for it. Seek and you will find. And so sacrifice from the heart, you got to live your life in such a way that you're sacrificing for him. We talked about Cain and Abel, the difference between their sacrifice. In the passage in Genesis where it's talking about Abel's sacrifice versus Cain's sacrifice, it's interesting how it describes it, because it says that Abel gave his firstborn and the fatlings of his sheep. So he gave the best. He gave the best of what he had. But Cain offered some fruits. So the language seems to indicate he was not giving the best he had. It's, I got to give something to God, so we'll give him the leftovers. The attitude of the heart is precisely why he was rejected. In Hebrews 11, verse 4, it says, by faith, Abel offered to God a more acceptable sacrifice than Cain, through which he was commended as righteous, God commending him by accepting his gifts. And through his faith, though he died, he still speaks. So it was by faith. We know that, I think I took it down here somewhere. Where's my verse? Well, I'll just quote it then. The verse that says that whatever does not proceed from faith is sin. So if he's not giving in an attitude of faith, then it's actually sinful how he's giving, because he's not doing it with the confidence that he's doing what he's supposed to do. In James 4:17, it says, to him who knows to do good and does not do it, to him it's sin. It doesn't say to everybody it's sin. If you know to do something and you don't do it, then to you that's sin. To you that's a violation. To you, you're violating a light that you were given, a revelation that you were given. You can't hold anybody else to that standard because you don't know the light that they've been given. Now, obviously, we're not talking about like the 10 Commandments. That's a given. And there's some light that everybody has. Like everybody inside of them knows that certain things are wrong. It's wrong to murder people. Like that should be a given. Like you can't at the end of time say, I didn't know that was wrong. Yahweh knows what you know because he knows when he revealed it to you. He was there when he revealed it to you. But if there's something else that you know that you're supposed to be giving up to him, if you know that there's something you're supposed to lay aside, if you know that there's something that you're supposed to be doing, to him who knows to do good, you've been instructed, this is what you're supposed to do. You don't do it, it's sin to you. And what is sin? It's transgression of the law, it says in 1 John 3:4. What is transgression? It's to go beyond the limit, to go beyond the bounds, to violate. So sin is basically violating Torah. It's violation of some principle in Torah. I thought this was interesting because I was looking it up in this Jewish translation that was talking about how if you start putting in the New Testament, anywhere it says sin, put violation of Torah and see how it reads out. So, for instance, in Matthew 4:17, from then on Yeshua began to proclaim, repent, turn away from your sins, for the kingdom of heaven is near. You put, turn away from your violation of Torah, for the kingdom of heaven is near. It really brings it to a deeper level. 1 John 3:6, no one who abides in him keeps on violating Torah. No one who violates Torah has seen him or known him. Now that will run crosswise to a lot of Christian thinking. But it's scripture. Sin is a violation of Torah. Sin is a violation of Torah. If you keep violating Torah, then you don't know God. That's not my words. That's the words of John. Who's John? John was the disciple who Yeshua loved. He was the closest one to Yeshua. I think if anybody knew about how to get close, it would have been him. 1 John 3, 8 through 9, the one who practices violation of Torah is of the devil. Woo! For the devil has been violating Torah from the beginning. The Son of God appeared for this purpose, to destroy the works of the devil. No one born of God practices violation of Torah because God's seed remains in him. He cannot violate Torah because he is born of God. So it all comes down to a matter of the heart. Are you born of God or are you not? Then if you are born of God, then right within you, Holy Spirit was given to you to give you the ability to fulfill the Torah, to carry out everything that's required in it, and to go above and beyond. You know, Yeshua didn't stop with just the letter of the law. Anyone gave oral commandments. It was Yeshua. You know, the word says, you shall not murder. But I say to you, if you hate your brother in your heart, you've murdered him. That takes the fence out a little bit further. And so when we're walking through our life, talking about making a sacrifice, it needs to be based on, and sacrifice being drawing the boundaries in our life and saying, how do I best please you? How do I best please you? What can I give to you? How can I lay down my life further for you? As we're drawing those bounds, we need to do it from the heart, not from an obligation, not from a fear of I'm going to be punished if I don't do this, but because of love. That's what the whole thing is that she was reading before about the offerings. Everyone who offers it willingly, ungrudgingly from his heart. You know, we know that in the New Testament it said God loves a cheerful, hilarious, prompt to do it giver whose heart is in his giving. His heart is in his giving. It's not just plunking it in the basket, moving on with your life. This is an offering from my heart because I love you. And no, you're not buying God off. And no, just giving money is not enough. There's some people who can give all the money and whatever, and their heart's no more in it than anything. But sometimes the physical is the best place to start with sacrifice. Think of Yeshua with the rich young ruler. He came up to him and said, you know, what can I do to inherit eternal life? He said, go and sell all you have, give it to the poor, and then come follow me. Now, he's not against people having things. He's against things having people. He came to destroy the works of the devil. He came to loose the prison of the captive. He came to free them from captivity. And some people who are wealthy are the most held in captive. Their money has them. They don't have the money. So he knew that about this man. And he says, fine, go give it all up and then come follow me. The man went away sad because he had much wealth. In reality, that wealth had him. He wasn't willing to lay it down for the kingdom. He wasn't willing to give it up to gain something that he couldn't buy with money. But we're in our offering, in our sacrifice, the sacrifice and the offering is something that we own, that's within our possession, that's within our ability, that we are able to give. If it's an offering, a lot of times it's something that's almost out of our abundance, or it's well within our ability. It might be something you take out of your savings account, but a sacrifice is something you give of yourself that actually costs you something. It's something that would involve you going without something to gain that. You know, and that's what we're doing. Again, in the fast, in our lives. We're to offer up our lives as a living sacrifice. Every day, as we're walking through the day, living it so that we're walking with him through our day, really. Walking in that intimacy, it's all about the heart. It's all about our heart with him. It's about saying, you're worth more to me than anything else in this world. You're worth more than the very air I breathe. You are everything to me. And then not just saying it, but living it out in our lives. And I think as we begin to step into that, as we begin to experience that, we're going to find life on another level. We're going to find that elevated life, that it's not just a thing we do, but it becomes something that consumes our very being. We become like that all-consuming fire, that bush that was consumed, but it wasn't burnt up. That we're so consumed with him that anything we touch, it is the fragrance of him that's left behind. When Moses cried out, show me your glory, because he was so passionate about that, he ended up saying, I will let all my goodness pass by you. And his goodness was so weighty and so heavy and so glorious that it left an impact, an imprint on Moses' very body. He had to put a veil over his face when he went out with the people because he was shining. Just being in the presence of Yahweh will change you. And what did the people around say about Yeshua's disciples? That they knew that they had been with the Lord. They knew that they had been with the Lord because their life was different. How is your life different as you're making your sacrifice to him? How is as you're walking forward through 2024, how will this year be different than 2023? How will it be elevated? We're on that ascending cycle. And sometimes we can go through some years where it seems like we've plateaued and we're not really gaining any progress. This needs to be a year where we propel up to another level, where our intimacy grows deeper with him, and that propels us higher in the realms with him. That it's not just for us. Again, it's not just about us. We're fine. We're saved. We're going to heaven. And we have a future that's brighter than we can even imagine. But it's about getting the people out there to see, to know, and to want what we have. Our lives should make others want to serve him. Our lives should be an attractor to Yahweh, not a repellent. And there's been far too many so-called Christians whose lives have turned other people off to the Lord. Unfortunately, that's not how it's supposed to be. Now, that doesn't mean that we walk around wishy-washy and we're not going to stand up for anything. We speak the truth. We'll always speak the truth in love. And when you start to become intimately acquainted with him, who is he? Who is Yahweh? God is love. So the more intimately acquainted you are with him, the more you'll take on his personality. And that love is so powerful. That love never fails. That love will penetrate the hardest of hearts. That love will break the bonds of the prisoner. That love will take the blinders off the eyes. That love will be so powerful that it will lead men to repentance, to turn to him, to find the Savior, and to find that same intimate relationship with him. That's what the kingdom of heaven is all about. Bringing it back to the garden status, bringing it back to the level of intimacy that man once had through Yeshua's sacrifice. As he did, as he is, so are we in this world. I mean, that's a powerful concept. But I encourage you in the time that remains in this fast and moving forward beyond the fast, examine how we can live our lives as that living sacrifice, how we can be more pleasing, more acceptable to him out of a true desire of our hearts to be one with him. Anything else to say?
I was going to add, that's where it all comes in with he's the God who sees.
He's the God who sees.
So I see you. He sees everything that's going on with everybody, anywhere, any situation. He's the God who sees, and that ties into the whole thing of being the God of more than enough, being the God of abundance. I am the God who sees, and I know I see you, and I know everything you're going through at every minute. and I've already made the way for it. I've already made the way for it.
Well, thank you for those of you who joined us today on Facebook. We trust you've gotten something out of this message. We will see you on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Until then, you have a blessed week.